all. I'm Erika. Excited to share my final Capstone project today for the Overclock Accelerator AI Ops program. So I have spent the last couple of weeks thinking about how we can better leverage AI to help family caregivers like myself. There are over 60 million of us in this country, and a huge strain of family caregiving is that you constantly have to manage and coordinate so many different moving pieces at once. Now, a lot of caregiving tools that exist tend to be catered towards more professional caregivers. There are significantly less out there for simple family members who are caring for a loved one. Instead, a lot of us end up having to just rely on juggling between several apps, our calendar, our notes app. If you're like me and you like Notion, 20 different Notion pages, and all of this can get very messy and very overwhelming very fast. And so, with that context, all of this is what led me to develop PeeBee, which is a life ops agent with an expanded skill set to serve family caregivers. So I'm able to talk to PeeBee in very plain language, and PeeBee is able to, in its current state, handle 4 primary functions. So it can understand very messy notes, which I take when I'm at doctor's appointments. It can actually take actions based on those notes, so it knows when to log meds, to pull out schedules, and how to fit things into my overall day. It understands other logistical items like, again, medication refill. Okay, we just got this 30-day prescription. When should we start making sure the refill's ready? Who are our primary doctors for the person in my care? What is their insurance? How can we better understand the insurance, right? So all of this sort of ability to translate very complex buckets of knowledge into plain language, into accessible language that I can understand. And then finally, PeeBee is able to look for what's missing. It's one thing to just log medications, but if there is an expectation that this medication needs to be taken at a certain time or that this appointment was coming up, PeeBee is more proactive in follow-up and in piecing together pieces of what might be missing from care. And so for the sake of this demo, I'll be showcasing a sub-agent version of PeeBee called PeeBee2, which is sort of a baby clone of the real thing, but that doesn't actually share any of my personal data. Now, I will just say before I get into my demo, PeeBee is just one part of an overarching system, because the other issue I wanted to address through this project is that caregiving can create a lot of informational bottlenecks, where the caregiver has to hold every single piece of information in their head, which is extremely high risk, and it is also very disempowering for the person in care, right? And so I wanted to create an application that can balance that load just a little bit by giving the care recipient access to their care and their own information. So in a sense, just making them more of an active participant rather than just a patient. So when I talk to PeeBee, it is able and it knows to push certain pieces of information into the app. Things like new meds, new appointments will update in real time, so everyone is informed on the fly. And so just to give some understanding of the back-end mechanisms at play here, PeeBee is an Overclock agent. PeeBee lives in Discord, which is my preferred communication tool, and uses primarily the Gemini 2.5 Flash LLM. However, I do have DeepSeek V3 as a fallback model, and all of these LLMs are coming through OpenRouter. The companion app is hosted on Vercel with data pushed from PeeBee to the app through JSON bin. I will also mention PeeBee was great with helping me build a lot of the structures needed. However, I did work with Claude to ensure that some of the aesthetics were a bit more refined, because that became harder to manage within the agent itself. And so in just a moment, I'll be giving you a quick run through of how it all works in real time. So right here we have a server. This is called, I'm calling it the Care Hub. In it, I have different buckets of things I need to remember and do. And so we have things like daily brief, and I'll tell PeeBee to give me a brief. That's going to take a second, so I'll walk us through everything else first. We've got caregiving, right, where I want to know if I have notes, I can just copy and paste them here, and it'll update the companion app. So I'm going to send that here too and say, hey, the doctor prescribed Tylenol twice a day. We have this appointment next Tuesday. Can you just mark it down? And so now it's out of my brain and into the Discord. It also does things like task tracking. On my personal instance, there's like food tracking, all sorts of stuff. And so it is a little slow. However, what you'll end up seeing here, perfect. So here it's summarized everything I fed into it today. It lets me know, okay, what were some of the health things that came up? What about the meds? What's been updated there? Sometimes it's just helpful to wrap my head around everything together versus all of the little bits of fragmented information I've been sharing. And then as you'll see here in caregiving, PeeBee's now updated the companion app, which you can see on the right and which I'll walk through with these new medications and new appointments. So just to break down the app very quickly, then I'll move into questions. Again, the person who would be on this interface is the care recipient, not the caregiver. So it would have things like medicine reminders. Anyone who's a caregiver knows sometimes people do not like to take their medication. So when things are not being flagged as taken, it does flag me to let me know this has not been done. But you're having a good day. Margaret's being good, doing what she needs to do. She says, I took it, and that's also logged with the agent. Then we have things like meds. So give some context of what they are, how many times a day you have to take it. Knowledge is power. So I also link to some sources around what these medications are and things like that. Let's go back here. We have the calendar, and you can see what I added, the PCP follow-up on next Tuesday. Some other things we have is doctors, quick information, a telephone book just for quick, who are my most important contacts. I've also got a little movement section. If you're doing PT, obviously don't do it alone, but right, you want to get examples of what it is you can do. These all link to videos that I can also have PeeBee drop in here. And then finally, there's stuff around insurance. Again, needed, much needed for me. We've also got a little chat interface, right, which not today, but ideally is a smaller instance of PeeBee as well, since she has like all the context and the sort of care recipient is able to discuss their care. And then finally, we just have this sort of my info card, right? Things can happen. So just good to have emergency information, things like your medication, who to call in an emergency, blood type, all that stuff, all this health data that HIPAA protects. And so, yeah, with that is a quick download of what I built. Does anyone have any questions? Hi, Carmen. Do you foresee any anticipated challenges for the care recipient while they use the app? Any features TBD? So I think for me, I have some accessibility features here, things like text size contrast. I would love a world where a lot of this can be also made audible, right? So people don't have to scroll all the time and click through a bunch of different interfaces. I also would love a version of this that is maybe just the chat. And so if someone needs to pull all of this information, I can't imagine potentially you're someone with a chronic illness and things like that. You don't want to have to maneuver through everything. Sometimes you just want to say, hey, is my medication covered? When do I have to take this? And that's just a single chat application as well. Thank you for your question, Carmen.
Yeah, my question was going to be, have you talked to any insurance companies or any health providers to white label this or license it? Because I can easily see folks saying, oh, if we have this tracking application, we can show that they're like progressing in their healthcare and therefore maybe we give them better insurance rates or better this or better that. I think you've got some significant potential there. This is really cool.
Thank you. Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. I haven't. I keep my conversations with insurance at a minimum usually. However,
I'm the
this
same
sort
way.
of
Yeah.
presents something really, yeah, this presents something actually very fruitful. So I do appreciate
hmm
that. And
hmm
definitely something I've thought about if this were a product for market.
Elena, question from you.
Yeah, and I'm sorry if I miss this feature, but does it have any kind of emergency call or and tracking symptoms just to so AI can tell you if things happening before you know it?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. So the My Info panel, had I gotten it to work, there is the call 911. So there is a link to emergency services. In terms of symptom tracking, I can actually show you one thing I wrote this morning. It was like, her blood pressure is a little high. However, it's regular most mornings. What can we do? It gives me additional information. It flagged it. And then when it reminded me later about taking blood pressure, it did include make sure you're logging all of this stuff as we discussed prior. So it is implemented right now in a smaller way.
Amazing. Love this.
Thank you.